We had a very cold night last night. Temperatures, I think, got down to 33 here. Some recorded temperatures in the area dropped as low as 30 degrees. So for some reason, whether it was instinct or a hunch or just procrastination, I didn't plant my peppers and my tomatoes. Thank goodness. But I did put them in the greenhouse, and I wanted to check to see how they did last night, even being in the greenhouse. Whew. And it's warm in here. It's probably about 65 already, but it looks like my tomatoes are doing just fine. I have some flowers here on this side that are growing and doing well. I did plant some squashes and some pumpkins over here. Have a few that haven't germinated yet, but gonna give them time before I start again. I have more tomatoes down on that shelf. So welcome to Blue Heron Hill. I'm Sue. Thanks for coming along with me. My tomatoes are okay. Thank goodness. The peppers are in the house. I didn't even bring them out to the greenhouse in the last couple days. They were hardening off on my deck, and I did bring them inside last night, although being close to the house would probably have been okay for them. But I have a lot of peppers, and I didn't want a chance losing any of them. So I think I fared very well in waiting and procrastinating, but these have got to get into the garden today or tomorrow. We are going to have rain on Saturday. Yay! We haven't had rain in 2+ weeks. Things are still relatively moist, not too dried out. So, and that's because the temperatures, haven't been up into the boiling zone for us gardeners yet. What I have been doing these last week or something is prepping my beds. I've called it procrastination, and I'm glad I did, because I would have to gone out and covered all of my tender annuals, and that would have been a chore and a half. So all of my beds are prepped and ready to be planted, and I hope to get it done over the next 2 days. And I'm not going to take you step by step digging into every single bed and showing you how I plant things. I may pop in here with a couple planting tips for tomatoes and for peppers and some different things like that. But otherwise, I am just going to go full on in planting mode. So I'm going to stop this right here and maybe just insert a couple little videos on planting, how I plant my tomatoes. And then I'll probably just sign off for this video. But there's some more exciting ones coming up. So let me get my gloves on, get my trowel, and get planting. Okay, getting ready to plant tomatoes. Now, you don't often think that you would need power tools in your garden, but I found that this is one of the best ways of planting tomatoes. Now, my tomatoes get rather leggy when they're down in my seed area downstairs and growing. And this year in particular, I'm planting them later than usual. So there's quite a lot of stem. These are some of the shorter ones. And I want to be able to plant them deeply in the ground. I will plant this one probably up to about here. And roots will develop along this stem. The little hairy projections down there at the bottom, those aren't actually roots. They tell the plant they give the plant other sensory stimuli. But sometimes you can see, and not on this one in particular, but you get little white nodules on here. If I have one, I will let you know if anything comes up. But those are roots. But roots can form all along this whole stem because a tomato is a vine. And when vines grow, they generally grow without support on the ground. If there is support, they'll vine themselves up. And in the case of tomatoes, they'll need a little bit of help in supporting them on your trellis. But as they touch the ground along the stem area, they will root, and that will give them more nourishment and keep the plant healthier to gain all of the nutrients that they do need. So, getting back to power tools. I use a power tool with a big plant auger on it. And this helps me dig a very deep hole. Sometimes I have a little wrist problem, so digging down with a trowel or a shovel or something like that, constant repetition on your wrists is not good for a gardener. So what I do is I take a power tool with an auger like this. And this is also good. It's not just a one-time tool. I use this to put bulbs in the ground. That digs a nice deep hole too. So it's not just a one-shot wonder for tomato plants. So let me show you what I do. This is my drip irrigation, and right here is a hole, and I purposely line this up to where the water will drip out, right where this little guy is going to live. Now, a lot of people amend their soil. When they plant their tomatoes, they'll put different things in the hole, just like that. And sometimes I do, but my soil is pretty good. A lot of people put egg shells, even a whole egg. I've heard bananas too for the potassium, which is always a good thing. One thing about the eggshells that I wanted to talk to you about. Eggshells have a lot of calcium in it, and your tomatoes do need calcium. That stops blossom end rot, and it helps in the overall health of the tomato plant. But when you have an eggshell, that is not the easiest source of calcium to break down for the tomato this year. Now, in succeeding years, you're putting more calcium in the soil. The calcium doesn't leach out of that eggshells to actually help this particular tomato this year. It takes quite a long time for that eggshell to break down. If you have ever put eggshells in your compost pile, you know that they're still there after they've been composted for 6 months, 8 months, 9, even a year. You will still find a whole eggshell in there. So putting eggshells into your soil is not going to work for your plants this year. But what you can use, there are a few things that you can use. You can use lime, but if you do use lime, that raises the pH of your soil. When you raise the pH, it becomes more alkaline. Lowering the pH is making it more acidic. Tomatoes love an acid soil. Not too far down, maybe about 6.5 is probably more in the range that you want. 7 is a very neutral soil, which is good too. Another thing that you could use would be gypsum, which is calcium sulfate, I think. Yeah, a lot of confusing terms if you're not a chemist. But that does not affect the pH of your soil. You can always use a foliar spray too. There are some out in the market. I'll put something down below and link something for you. But eggshells, in my opinion, don't work for this year's crop. Just a tip. Back to planting this entire row, and then I have 2 more rows. Another tip for growing tomatoes: instead of digging them very deep, and if you can't dig them very deep, you can also lay them, I'm going to lay it this way. You can dig a shallower trench and lay them this way and they will root the same way. Their root system tends to be shallow, so it doesn't grow down deep into your soil. The roots that are already here, if you do dig them down, they will grow, but they will also root along the stem. But most of their roots are going to be a shallow root that spreads out, a foot to 2 feet all around the main tomato. So you can plant them like this in the ground, laying them down, and they will naturally grow up towards the light. That's a geotropism that makes the plant grow up and the roots go down. But in the case of tomatoes, they like to stay underground, but they like shallow root system. So if you can't dig down deep, lay them on their side, cover them up. There'll be a root structure all along this line. All planted down there. It was a long day planting 3 tomato trellises. Plus, I have 3 right here on this small trellis. And then we have all of these on the second trellis. At another time, I'll talk about the varieties that I've planted. And then this is the 3rd trellis. And I have them going down there, coupled almost into the raspberry bushes. They all got a very good drink of water. We have rain coming in another, not tomorrow, probably the next day. So fingers crossed, good old acid rain from the sky, as my mother would say. Tomatoes like acid soil. So rainwater for them is like gold. I have some other tomatoes that are planted in other beds in the garden that aren't on a trellis or anything. I'll put a cage around them or something like that. They're just stuck into little nooks and crannies because I had extra tomatoes. Here are my leftover tomatoes. I think these are slicing tomatoes and maybe some paste tomatoes. These here are cherries or grapes. I think they're all cherries. I think I planted my grape tomatoes. So they will find homes in somebody else's garden. Well, it has been a long day. I thought maybe I would get to the peppers, but nowhere near close. Not after planting at least 45 tomato plants, plus probably about another 5 in different areas. Didn't have time, ran out of steam, ran out of day, just ran out. So the pepper planting video will be another video. So thanks for joining me. If you haven't already, please subscribe, Press that notification bell and you will know when the next video comes up. That might be the pepper planting video. So until the next time that we can go digging in the dirt, happy gardening. Bye.